Chosen one, stop right there. Before you scroll away, you need to understand something. This is not a random video. This is not background noise. This is a divine interruption. And the reason you felt pulled to this message is because something in your life has already been moving in silence. You have been feeling it, haven't you? That weight in your chest. That strange exhaustion that no one around you seems to understand. The pressure, the delay, the betrayals you did not see coming, the closed doors that made no sense. The nights where your mind would not rest because something in your spirit kept saying, "Pay attention." You are not imagining that. You are not overreacting. You are standing in a moment where heaven is forcing your attention back onto what you have been trying to ignore. And hear this carefully. God is not whispering anymore. This is serious. There are moments in life when the warning is gentle. Then there are moments when the warning becomes undeniable. You are in one of those moments right now, the kind where the wrong silence becomes costly, the kind where ignoring the signs will not make them disappear, the kind where what you call stress is actually spiritual pressure, the kind where what you call bad luck is actually resistance, the kind where what you call confusion is actually evidence that something deeper is being hidden from you. Because not everything around you has been honest. Some of the distance you felt was not accidental. Some of the doors that closed were not punishment. Some of the people who pulled away were not there to stay. And some of the delays that made you feel forgotten were the very thing protecting you from stepping into something too early. But that does not mean the battle has been easy. You have been carrying more than you admitted, smiling while breaking, moving while drained, praying while waiting, showing up while your spirit felt thin. And somewhere along the way, you started wondering whether God saw how tired you are. He saw it. Every tear you swallowed, every night you asked for clarity, every night you asked for clarity, every time you almost gave up and kept going anyway, every hidden wound, every quiet disappointment, every betrayal that left you staring at people you once trusted, trying to understand how they could switch so fast. Heaven saw all of it, and that is exactly why this message found you now. Because you are not being punished, you're being positioned. There is a reason your life has felt unusually heavy lately. There is a reason your peace has been under pressure. There is a reason certain things no longer fit. Certain people no longer feel familiar. Certain places no longer feel safe, and certain conversations now feel spiritually empty. You are outgrowing what once contained you. And when a chosen life begins to shift, everything false starts to tremble. That is why the spiritual warfare has intensified, not because you are losing, because you are getting close, close to the breakthrough, close to the reveal. Close to the decision that changes the entire atmosphere around your life, close to the moment where the hidden thing becomes visible, close to the moment where what was blocking you loses its authority, close to the moment when the thing you have been praying for finally starts moving. But first you have to stop pretending you are fine. You have to admit the exhaustion. You have to admit the hurt. You have to admit that some of the pressure on your life has not been normal. Because when you keep calling a spiritual emergency just a hard season, you stay exposed to what is trying to wear you down. And that is the warning in this message. Do not ignore the subtle things anymore. Do not dismiss the repeated signs. Do not laugh off the unease in your spirit. Do not keep handing access to people who only know how to drain you. Do not keep forcing doors that were never assigned to you. Do not keep explaining yourself to people who were never meant to understand your assignment. There is a divine separation happening, and it is not always comfortable. Sometimes the pruning feels like loss before it feels like protection. Sometimes the silence feels like abandonment before it feels like preparation. Sometimes the waiting feels cruel before it feels sacred. But what is being removed from your life is not always a blessing in disguise. Sometimes it is a distraction being exposed in real time. You have been asking for clarity, and clarity is coming. You have been asking for direction, and direction is being restored. You have been asking for confirmation, and this is it. What you are walking through is not random. It is layered. It is timed. It is precise. And even though it has felt like delay, heaven has been arranging details you could not see yet. Now listen closely, because this is the part many people miss. The reason this season feels heavier is because your life is no longer small enough for the same old patterns. The same thinking cannot carry the next level. The same relationships cannot carry the next assignment. The same habits cannot carry the next doorway. Something in you has already changed, even if your environment has not caught up yet. That is why you feel restless. That is why old things feel dead. That is why you cannot keep pretending. You are in a threshold moment. The old version of you is losing its grip, and the new one is not fully visible yet. That in-between space is where fear gets loud. That is where the enemy tries to convince you that nothing is happening. That is where discouragement tries to make you interpret delay as denial. That is where exhaustion tries to make you misread your own process. But you are not stuck. You are being refined. And yes, some of the pain has been coming from the fact that you were never meant to remain in the same place emotionally, spiritually, or mentally. You were meant to awaken. You were meant to discern. You were meant to see what others missed. You were meant to hear what others ignored. You were meant to recognize patterns before they became prisons. That is what makes you dangerous to darkness, not because you are loud, because you are awake, not because you are perfect, because you are sensitive, not because you have never failed, because you refuse to stay blind. And right now, in the middle of all this pressure, I need you to do something simple but powerful. Pause this message for a second. Comment one word that matches what your spirit is feeling right now. Comment clarity if you need direction. Comment protection if you know this is a warfare season. Comment breakthrough if you are tired of waiting. Like this video so this message stays in your path, and subscribe because there are people who need to hear what is being uncovered in you. Because the truth is, chosen one, this is not just about surviving a hard season. It is about not missing the moment when God begins to move everything into place. It is about not letting fatigue make you surrender too early. It is about not letting betrayal harden you into silence. It is about not letting spiritual noise distract you from divine instruction. Something has been trying to pull your attention off course. Something has been trying to make you second-guess what God already confirmed. Something has been trying to keep you busy enough to miss the breakthrough already forming behind the scenes. But that ends now. This is your warning. This is your reminder. This is your divine interruption. The doors that matter will not stay closed forever. The truth that was hidden will not stay hidden forever. The wrong voices will not keep their hold forever. And the heaviness you have been carrying will not define your future forever. Keep going, even if it is quietly, even if it is slowly, even if you have to do it scared, because heaven is not done with your story, and the very thing that tried to break you may be the thing that proves how chosen you really are. And if this message hits something deep in you, understand this one thing before you leave. You were not brought this far to be defeated by what was only meant to delay you. And that delay, it has been eating at your mind more than anyone knows, because what exhausted you was not just the waiting, it was the silence after you prayed, the silence after you trusted, the silence after you gave your energy to people who disappeared the moment you needed support back. You kept asking yourself why everything suddenly became so heavy, why your motivation started collapsing, why you could feel people changing around you before they even said anything, why your spirit became uncomfortable in rooms you once felt welcomed in. And the truth is, your discernment has been waking up. That is why certain conversations now drain you. That is why fake love feels obvious. That is why your spirit reacts before your mind fully understands what is wrong. You are seeing through masks now, and not everybody is happy about that, because once a chosen person becomes spiritually aware, manipulation stops working the same way. Emotional traps stop working the same way. Distractions stop working the same way. Distractions stop working the same way. The enemy loses access the moment your eyes begin to open. That is why this season became intense, not because you are cursed, because something inside you is finally refusing to stay asleep. And some of you listening to this already know exactly what I mean. You have felt strange resistance lately, random frustration, sudden emotional heaviness, confusion that seems to come out of nowhere, moments where you almost talk yourself out of your own purpose, moments where you question your value after one disappointing conversation, moments where you feel isolated even in crowded rooms. That is not random. You are carrying a calling while fighting unseen pressure at the same time. And people who do not understand spiritual warfare will try to convince you that everything is just stress. But deep down, you know there is more happening. Because this battle has been following you too precisely. Every time you get close to peace, something interrupts it. Every time you begin rebuilding yourself, something tries to pull you backward. Every time you start believing again, disappointment suddenly appears. And after a while, it started making you emotionally numb. You stopped talking about your dreams the same way, stopped expecting people to understand, stopped explaining your pain. You learned how to suffer quietly. But heaven has been watching that too, and this is what you need to hear right now. Your silence did not make God ignore you. Your exhaustion did not cancel your purpose. Your confusion did not remove your calling. In fact, some of you are closer to your breakthrough than you have ever been before. But because everything feels chaotic, you cannot recognize the shift happening around you. Listen carefully. The enemy attacks hardest when something is about to change. That relationship tension? Not random. That sudden emotional pressure? Not random. That exposure of hidden motives? Not random. That uncomfortable feeling pushing you away from certain environments? Not random. You are being repositioned, and repositioning rarely feels comfortable while it is happening. Sometimes God will allow everything unstable around you to shake at once, so you finally stop building your identity on temporary things. Sometimes He will allow isolation so your spirit can hear clearly again. Sometimes He will remove distractions by force because your destiny is too important to keep wasting years asleep. That is why this message feels so personal, because it is touching wounds nobody else knows about. The hidden disappointment, the secret frustration, the exhaustion from carrying everyone else while barely holding yourself together, the anger you never expressed, the prayers you almost stopped praying, the dreams you buried because too many doors closed. But hear this, those closed doors were not the end of your story. Some of them were rescue missions. You keep mourning access to places God was trying to protect you from. You keep grieving connections that were secretly draining your spirit. You keep replaying losses that heaven already removed on purpose. And now that the fog is beginning to lift, you are starting to realize something terrifying. Not everybody around you wanted to see you rise. That realization hurts. Because chosen people love deeply, they stay loyal too long. They give chances after warning signs. They overlook disrespect because they see potential in people. And sometimes that compassion becomes the very thing that leaves them wounded. But this next season will require discernment, not desperation. You cannot keep begging for access where your spirit feels rejected. You cannot keep shrinking yourself to make insecure people comfortable. You cannot keep ignoring red flags because you fear being alone. Because isolation taught you something important. It taught you who you are without noise. And yes, the loneliness almost broke you. There were nights you felt invisible. Nights where you questioned whether your life was actually moving anywhere. Nights where you smiled publicly, but internally felt disconnected from everything. But what if that isolation was never punishment? What if it was preparation? What if heaven pulled you away from certain voices because your next assignment requires clarity? What if the distance was necessary? What if this entire painful season was creating a version of you strong enough to carry what is coming next? Because something is coming. You can feel it. That is why your spirit has been restless. That is why ordinary life suddenly feels empty. That is why you cannot settle anymore. The old version of you cannot survive the next level of your calling, and transformation always feels like death before it feels like rebirth. That is why so many chosen people quit too early. They mistake transition for destruction. They think everything falling apart means God abandoned them. But sometimes things fall apart because the illusion can no longer continue. Sometimes the mask has to crack. Sometimes the false support has to disappear. Sometimes the comfort zone has to collapse. Because destiny does not grow in stagnant places. And right now, you are being pulled out of stagnation, whether you feel ready or not. The fear, the uncertainty, the emotional pressure, it is all forcing you to confront who you really are underneath the survival mode. And that confrontation changes everything. Because once you stop doubting your discernment, once you stop apologizing for your sensitivity, once you stop ignoring the warning signs God keeps placing in front of you, your entire life begins to shift. Suddenly, you stop chasing what drains you. Suddenly, you recognize manipulation faster. Suddenly, your peace matters more than external approval. Suddenly, you understand why certain people had to leave. Suddenly, you realize the delay was protecting your future. And when that understanding fully arrives, nothing will control you the same way again. So do not ignore this moment. Do not go back to sleep spiritually. Do not numb yourself just because awakening feels uncomfortable. You asked God for clarity. This is part of the answer. You asked for elevation. This is part of the process. You asked for purpose. This is why everything fake is being exposed, because heaven refuses to let you enter your next season blind. And years from now, you may look back at this exact painful chapter and realize this was the moment everything started changing. The moment you finally stopped ignoring the voice warning you. The moment you finally recognized the warfare around your life. The moment you stopped chasing what was never assigned to you. The moment you finally understood God was trying to wake you up the entire time. And once you wake up, you can never return to the version of yourself that tolerated everything just to avoid losing people. That version is dying. You feel it already. The patience you once had for fake energy is disappearing. The need to constantly explain yourself is fading. The desire to keep proving your worth to people who only notice you when they need something is collapsing right in front of your eyes. And honestly, that change scares you a little. Because part of you still remembers who you used to be before the betrayals, before the disappointments, before the spiritual exhaustion, before you learned that not everybody clapping for you is actually praying for you. There was a time you trusted easier, a time you believed words without having to study intentions behind them, a time you thought loyalty guaranteed loyalty in return. But this season changed that, not to make you cold, to make you discerning. There is a difference, and some of the pain you went through was never meant to destroy your heart. It was meant to sharpen your vision, because where God is taking you, blind trust would become dangerous. Emotional naivety would become dangerous. Ignoring red flags would become dangerous. You are entering a season where discernment will protect your destiny. That is why this warning matters so much. Because the next few decisions you make carry weight. Who you allow near your energy matters. Who you vent to matters. Who has access to your vulnerable moments matters. Who you keep trying to save matters. You cannot keep pouring divine energy into people committed to misunderstanding you. And that sentence hit somebody deeply, because you have spent too much time trying to convince people to value you correctly, trying to earn respect you should not have had to beg for, trying to heal people who enjoyed watching you bleed emotionally. You kept thinking if you loved harder, explained better, stayed longer, sacrificed more, things would finally change. But some people only appreciate your presence after your absence teaches them what they lost. And by then, it is too late. That is why heaven has been separating you quietly. Not everybody can follow you into the next chapter. Some people were assigned to your past, not your future, and your spirit already knows who they are. That uneasy feeling you get around certain people now, pay attention to it. That sudden emotional heaviness after certain conversations, pay attention to it. That exhaustion you feel after constantly being around negativity, pay attention to it. Because your spirit recognizes danger before your emotions want to accept it. Chosen one, this is serious. You cannot afford to keep ignoring what God keeps revealing, especially now, especially when your life is standing so close to transition, because something is shifting beneath the surface that you cannot fully see yet. The pressure increasing around you is proof of movement. The attacks intensifying are proof of movement. The confusion breaking apart old patterns is proof of movement. You are not crazy for feeling like your life is entering a completely different season. It is. And the unsettling part is, some people around you can feel it too. That is why their behavior changed. That is why certain people became distant for no clear reason. That is why some connections suddenly became tense. That is why envy started revealing itself through subtle comments, weird energy, hidden competition, passive disrespect, silence during your victories, and strange reactions to your growth. Because your transformation exposes people. Your healing exposes people. Your awakening exposes people. And people who benefited from the broken version of you will always become uncomfortable when you begin evolving. They liked you exhausted. They liked you uncertain. They liked you constantly doubting yourself. They liked when your light was dim enough for them to feel comfortable beside you. But now, something in you is changing too fast, and they can feel themselves losing control over the version of you they once understood. That is why this season feels lonely. Growth separates, awakening separates, elevation separates, elevation separates. Not everybody can walk with you once God starts removing the scales from your eyes. And yes, sometimes that hurts more than the struggle itself, because nobody warns chosen people about the grief attached to awakening. Nobody talks about the heartbreak of outgrowing environments you once loved. Nobody talks about how isolating it feels when your spirit changes before your surroundings do. Nobody talks about the pain of realizing you can no longer connect deeply with people who only understand the old version of you. But this separation is necessary, because your next assignment requires clarity. Your next season requires strength. Your next level requires protection. And protection sometimes looks like distance before it looks like peace. You keep asking God why certain things ended. Meanwhile, heaven is asking you why you still romanticize what almost destroyed you. Read that again in your spirit, because some of you are still emotionally attached to things God already removed, still grieving opportunities that would have drained you, still craving validation from people who secretly resented your potential, still replaying memories that your spirit has already outgrown. And every time you look backward emotionally, you delay your own healing. That is why this message found you now, to pull your focus forward again, to remind you that your destiny is bigger than your disappointment, to remind you that your purpose did not disappear just because the process became painful, to remind you that exhaustion is not proof of failure. Sometimes exhaustion is proof you have been fighting battles nobody else could see, and you have, for a long time. You have been fighting internally while pretending externally, fighting fear, fighting discouragement, fighting emotional heaviness, fighting the temptation to isolate completely, fighting thoughts that whispered, maybe nothing will ever change. But something is changing, slowly, quietly, powerfully. You may not see the full picture yet, but pieces are already moving into place. People are being repositioned. Doors are being aligned, truth is being uncovered, masks are slipping, distractions are collapsing, and your spirit is becoming stronger than the confusion surrounding you. That is why you cannot quit now. You are too close. Too close to clarity, too close to exposure, too close to freedom, too close to becoming the person your pain has been preparing you to become. And hear this carefully before the enemy convinces you otherwise. The reason hell fought your mind so aggressively is because your mind carries vision. The reason discouragement targeted you so heavily is because your future carries impact. The reason betrayal cut so deeply is because your heart was never ordinary. Chosen people feel everything intensely because they were never designed to live numb lives. That sensitivity is not weakness, it is spiritual awareness. But awareness without discipline becomes emotional chaos. Which is why this season is teaching you something critical. Stop ignoring your spirit just because your emotions want comfort. Comfort almost kept you trapped. Comfort almost kept you connected to people assigned to drain you. Comfort almost kept you asleep inside cycles heaven was trying to break. But now the cycle is cracking. Now your eyes are opening. Now the patterns look obvious. Now the manipulation feels visible. Now your spirit reacts faster than your excuses. And once that awakening fully settles into your soul, you become unstoppable in a completely different way. Not loud, not arrogant, not revenge-driven, just clear. Clear about who you are, clear about what no longer deserves access to you, clear about what God has been trying to show you all along, and that clarity will change your entire life. Because eventually, there comes a moment when the chosen one gets tired of surviving on fragments, tired of carrying pain in silence, tired of pretending the pressure is normal, tired of shrinking themselves so other people can stay comfortable. And I believe that moment is happening for you right now. Not tomorrow, not next year, now. This message did not enter your life by accident. You were guided here because heaven knew you were standing at a crossroads emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and if nobody interrupted the cycle, you would keep ignoring the very signs meant to save you. But the interruption has happened now. The veil is lifting now. The patterns are becoming obvious now. You cannot unsee what God has revealed to you in this season. You cannot unknow the truth your spirit keeps confirming. You cannot keep calling discernment overthinking just because other people are uncomfortable with your awareness. No, your spirit was picking up on things long before your mind accepted them. That is why certain environments suddenly felt heavy. That is why your energy changed around certain people. That is why your peace kept disappearing in places where you once felt accepted. Your soul was warning you before your emotions caught up. And chosen one, that warning may have protected your life more times than you realize, because some of the things you cried over were actually exits. Some of the delays you hated were divine detours. Some of the heartbreaks were heaven removing what your emotions would have stayed attached to forever. And yes, it hurt. It hurt deeply. There were moments you questioned yourself. Moments you wondered whether God forgot about you. Moments where exhaustion became so heavy that even getting out of bed felt spiritual. Moments where your smile became performance instead of joy. Moments where loneliness wrapped around your spirit like fog. But even there, God was still guiding you, even in confusion, even in silence, even while you were breaking internally. Because chosen people are often transformed in hidden places first, away from applause, away from recognition, away from validation. That hidden season changes you. It strips away illusions. It exposes hidden attachments. It teaches you who truly carries light and who only enjoys proximity to yours. And once that process begins, your entire world starts rearranging itself. Suddenly, your standards rise. Suddenly, your tolerance for fake energy disappears. Suddenly, your peace becomes more important than people-pleasing. Suddenly, you stop chasing what never chose you fully, and people notice that shift. Oh yes, they notice. Some will call you distant. Some will say you changed. Some will become uncomfortable because they no longer know how to access the old version of you. But let them misunderstand. Because healing changes people. Awakening changes people. Divine separation changes people. You were never meant to remain who you were before this season broke you open. This pressure was transforming you the entire time. And one day you will realize something powerful. The battle was not just about surviving attacks. It was about discovering your identity underneath all the noise. Because the enemy's greatest strategy was never simply to hurt you. It was to distract you from who you are, to keep you exhausted enough to doubt your purpose, busy enough to ignore your calling, emotionally wounded enough to settle for less than what God prepared for you. But despite everything, you are still here, still standing, still searching, still listening, still fighting for your peace even after all the disappointment. And that alone terrifies darkness. Do you understand that? The fact that you survived seasons that should have destroyed you completely means there is something on your life that hell could not erase. That is why the attacks became personal. That is why the warfare targeted your mind. That is why confusion tried to wrap around your future. Because your existence carries weight. Your obedience carries weight. Your awakening carries weight. And now, after all the tears, after all the delays, after all the betrayals, after all the lonely nights where you questioned whether anything would ever change, you are finally beginning to see what heaven was doing. Not punishing you, preparing you, separating you from what could not follow you forward, teaching you discernment, teaching you spiritual endurance, teaching you how to hear God even when life becomes noisy. Because where you are going next, clarity will matter more than comfort. And that next season, it is closer than you think. You can feel it already, the shift, the tension, the strange pull toward change, the discomfort with staying the same. That is not your imagination, that is transition. And transition always feels chaotic before it becomes beautiful. So if you have been waiting for a sign, this is your sign. If you have been asking God whether He still sees you, He does. If you have been wondering whether the pressure will ever break, it will. If you have been afraid that your purpose disappeared during the struggle, it did not. In fact, the struggle revealed it. And maybe that is the real reason this message found you tonight. Not just to warn you, but to wake you up one final time. To remind you that you are not crazy for feeling spiritually exhausted, not weak for feeling overwhelmed, not forgotten because life became difficult. You're in the middle of transformation, painful transformation, sacred transformation, the kind that changes your identity forever. So stop ignoring the voice pulling you higher. Stop doubting the discernment growing inside you. Stop running back to places your spirit already outgrew. Stop begging for access where heaven already closed the door. And most importantly, stop believing the lie that this season is the end of your story, because it is not the end. It is the separation before elevation, the silence before revelation, the breaking before rebuilding, the wilderness before arrival. And when everything finally makes sense, you are going to realize that God was speaking to you through every closed door, every betrayal, every delay, every warning, every restless night, and every uncomfortable shift that forced you to wake up. Nothing was wasted, nothing was random, nothing escaped heaven's attention, and neither did you. Chosen one, the reason this message reached you is because your next chapter has already begun.